You're listening to All Hands on Tech. Come along as we get to know the people and businesses behind the province's ever-expanding tech sector.
Each episode, we'll chat with local experts to uncover the hidden gems that make Nova Scotia a hub for collaboration, innovation, and creativity.
All Hands on Tech is proudly produced by Digital Nova Scotia, the industry association for Nova Scotia's growing tech sector. Hey, welcome along to another episode of All Hands on Tech. I'm your host, Eilish, and we've got another great conversation coming your way today. With over 20 years of experience in print and digital design, Amy Harrison created Pixels and Pieces to empower entrepreneurs with a brand that's right, one that works, and one that's ultimately theirs. She combines timeless design principles with modern design tools, things like Canva and WordPress, and this approach ensures that her clients' branding and websites are not just attractive, but also instrumental in business growth. And today, she is here with us to tell us all about it. Hey, Amy, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Nice and busy these days?
Yeah. It's been a busy Q1.
Okay, good. We love to hear that. Love to hear. Not too busy though, of course. We don't like that.
It's all good. It's all
good. Okay, so thanks so much for making the time to come chat with us on our podcast here. As always, we start with a couple icebreakers. You ready for them?
Let's go.
Okay, let's get into it. This first one is a tough one.
Okay.
I apologize. Home cooked meal or takeout from your favorite restaurant? Asking the tough questions here.
You know what? I'm gonna go with the home cooked. My husband and I.
Slight difference there.
Yeah, a little bit. My husband and I like to cook together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a favorite meal that you guys make?
No.
Okay, that's okay.
No.
That maybe is a good thing that you've got all kinds that you like to choose from.
Yeah, lots to choose from.
Good. Okay, good.
I think we have a binder probably about this thick of old like chef's plate recipes we cycle through. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I really need to get into that because I feel like I'm constantly making the same things over and over again, and my recipe book is like that big, so I need some variety in there.
Nice.
If you weren't a graphic designer, what do you think you'd be doing?
Oh, geez.
If you could do anything at all.
I'm actually a drummer in my spare time.
Really?
Yes. I play with Samba Nova.
Okay.
And we have a concert coming up on Saturday, April 5th at the Seahorse.
Okay.
Little plug. So maybe I would have done that. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Man, that's a fun one.
It is. Yeah. Samba Nova is a great group. And we have lots of fun.
Amazing. How long have you been drumming?
Since I was 12.
Really?
Yeah, I realized like 20 years graphic design, drumming since I was 12. I'm like, I think I do things long term.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's how you get better all the time.
True.
Just continuing the practice.
That's true.
Amazing. Okay, this is a fun one, but maybe a tough one. If you had to design a logo using only one color for the rest of your life, what color would you choose and why?
No.
I know.
No, I would not. But see, my instinct here is to be like, so do I get to use shades and tints of that color as well? Because if I do, like, blue is a pretty good choice for me for that. There's lots of, different feelings like trust and calmness and like a couple of different angles you can get with that. So I'll say blue.
Okay. I was going to...
right.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. I was going to guess like a bluey green. So that fits the vibe. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. But of course, that would be a nightmare. Blue is lovely. Blue is actually my favorite color. But I'm sure as a graphic designer, that would be horrible.
Every time someone says to me, business owners all the time, they say, well, my logo is pink. See? Because I like pink. Pink's a great color. And then they're like, and I'm like, well, who's your target audience? And they're like, well, like banks and businesses. And I go, okay, so let's rethink this. What I always say is having colors that you like is a good thing, but it's number 3.
Okay.
So number 1 is that you have good communication, good color psychology, that you're really using colors to communicate how you want people to feel about your company.
Okay.
Number 2 is that the colors work together. You have a palette of 3 to 5, color harmony, all this stuff. And then number 3 is that you like it. And 99% of my clients that I take through this process, we go through number 1, number 2, when they get to 3, they love it.
Okay.
So it's a good thing, just in the wrong order, and it's very common.
Okay. Yeah, see, that's my problem when I'm doing some design work. I'm like, ooh, I like this color. I like this one together. This one, I wear a lot of my my husband all the time whenever we go like shopping. I'll pick something up and he's like, you own that already. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. He's like, Eilish, it is a purple turtleneck sweater. It is a blue turtleneck sweater. You own that already. And I'm like, no, but this one's different. It's got a different shade.
Shades and tints.
Shades and tints. That's going to be my new argument. Shades and tints.
There you go.
Shades and tints. But number 3. Okay, number 3. Is that list even longer or does it stop at number 3?
No, I mean, I would say it's 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's not like 3 of, 10.
No.
So.
No. But
Okay,
most people
bottom of the barrel.
use it as number 1, which is, in my opinion, like incorrect.
Incorrect.
Number
Yes.
3. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we've kind of already jumped ahead on our
Yeah.
questions here.
Yeah.
But this is great. We're just
okay.
getting into it. That's what this conversation is all about. So let's rewind just a little bit. We'll bring it back to the beginning. What actually inspired you to create Pixels and Pieces? How did your journey as a graphic designer actually, even start to unfold 20 some years ago?
Yeah, 20.
We won't talk about it.
Yeah. I actually I was in high school.
Okay.
And I took a computer class where like Photoshop was like just a thing. It was kind of just a thing. And I thought I was pretty good at it. I didn't have any big art training or anything. And I decided to apply to like, kind of one of those trade schools that are not really around anymore. And I got in and off I went.
Amazing.
I did my graphic design diploma in like a year. And then after that, I decided, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to go to university, get a real degree. But after that, I went to Acadia, got my BA in English, and then decided to go to Pace University in New York.
Wow.
And I did a Master's of Science in Publishing, which no one knows exists. I mean, it just doesn't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I got to live in New York for a year.
Incredible.
I did my internship in the Flatiron Building in a science fiction publisher, and I'm a huge nerd, so that was like mecca for me.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy because I would like work at the university law office in the morning and work at my internship in the afternoon and then take my classes at night, and just it was a crazy, crazy year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But I will say having your champagne birthday in Times Square was really
unbelievable.
amazing. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Wow. Okay. That feels like a whole lifetime right there.
It kind of was. Yeah. I mean, it was a lifetime ago. But yeah.
It's in the weeds.
Yeah. So essentially the road sort of continues where you come back home. There's not really a lot of graphic design jobs unless you want to work at an agency. And it just wasn't really my vibe to do that. And so I ended up getting into these communication jobs. So it's very common right now. Like my husband actually works in one of these jobs where it's like, you are writer and designer and marketer, all of these in one. You're the communications officer of whatever. And so I did some jobs like that. Eventually through my career, my round peg did not fit in the square hole. So a bit over 5 years ago, after a layoff, I said, okay, you know what? I might just go out on my own. And I saw that the SEED program, shout out to SEED.
Shout out to SEED.
They were having an intake that started in December 2019. And I sat down with my husband and I said, you know what? Like, I think I want to do this.
Yeah, you have to give yourself a shot.
Yeah. So I worked it out. I said, okay, I'll give myself a year. Because the great thing about one of the programs at SEED is like, because I got laid off, I was on EI. I got to keep that while I'm in the program.
Okay,
right?
great.
So that was good.
Yeah.
So essentially I knew like by the time my EI ran out, I would have a few months left to decide, am I standing up on my own 2 feet? And so we said, okay, you know what? The end of 2020 is like the benchmark here. We'll see how we're doing by then. Yeah.
But you're here.
But I'm still here. I made it.
2020 didn't take you out.
No.
It tried.
I decided that I was going to buy a laser engraver.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I've got the graphic design skills and now I have the laser machine. I'm going to make custom promo products, right? I'm going to engrave things for all the events that are happening.
Yeah.
And I launched my website on April 1st, 2020.
Oh my gosh. All of those events.
They're gone overnight. So, I hate the word, but I made a pivot.
You pivoted.
Back to my graphic design roots and said, okay, you know what? What do I know a lot about? I know a lot about branding.
And here we are. Okay, so maybe not necessarily a champagne birthday, but still a very exciting one. 5 years. Congratulations.
Thank you. I really can't believe it, if I'm honest. Like, I still think I'm some scrappy startup sometimes.
I mean, that's not a bad attitude to have, right?
Yeah.
It keeps you on your toes, keeps you working hard, keeps you probably pretty grateful for the projects.
Yeah. 2024 was a banner year.
Amazing.
Banner year for me, personally and professionally.
Amazing.
We went on some crazy trips, and I blew an income goal out of the water. It was just not even close to what I was imagining, which was great.
Yeah.
But I've been to places that I never imagined, and it's been so great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that's the case. I feel like we've heard so many opposite stories, especially for businesses that, got their start during COVID and struggled the whole way through. And I'm not saying there certainly weren't any challenges. I'm sure that there were.
Yeah.
But
I think the advantage for me is that my business is digital. Right. And so I really can work from anywhere, and I can work for anyone, really.
Yeah.
And I do have clients all across North America right now.
Okay.
Trying to make a new push to the UK, but so I think I was able to really take advantage of opportunities that came up wherever.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you have to do. There's a resiliency in entrepreneurship that just blows me away as somebody who craves and therefore enjoys stability. It's not me, but I am always just in awe of folks that can do it.
My husband will very enthusiastically say, he's like, I could never do what she does. I don't know how she does it, but she's great at it. And I don't know why, and I don't know how. But he's very supportive. But
I was going to say, we love a supportive husband.
Yes, he's great. But he's the same as you. Yeah. He's like, no, I need to know where my paycheck is coming from every week.
Yes,
yeah,
that is absolutely me. I don't know if I necessarily want to call this a personal challenge per se, but you faced a little bit of a situation that I have to imagine is a little bit of a life-changing one, maybe for the better.
Yeah.
To ultimately, you received a rather later in life diagnosis.
That's right. Yes.
Of ADHD.
Yeah, that's right.
Talk to me about that. How old were you? No, don't hit me with how old you were. That was a rude question to ask. When?
It was a few years ago.
Okay, there we go. It was a few years ago. Okay.
Okay.
Was it pre Pixels and Pieces or post?
The on paper diagnosis is post.
Okay.
The what is going on is pre. So I mentioned earlier that, I came home after being in New York and, I kind of went through these different jobs. I mean, if I'm completely honest, in some of these cases, I was let go.
Okay.
And it was really hard.
Yeah.
Because it was never for cause. It was never like, oh, you did this wrong, now you're fired kind of thing. It was, you're not a good fit, after I'd been with a particular company for 2 years.
Ooh.
I was at an employer for over 4 years and got laid off with no real, reasoning. No performance reviews had been done, no reasons. And I stepped back and I kind of thought, what am I going to do? I mean, at this point, I was like, okay, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm going to start this business on my own because I keep going from job to job and it ends in a very similar fashion a lot of ways. And I was on social media, as one was during the pandemic. And, you're just sort of scrolling through and you're like, I resonate with that. Yeah, that kind of sounds like me.
Yeah, I checked that box.
Yep. And then I met somebody at a networking event named Keith Gellhorn. So he runs a company here in Halifax called Advocacy.
Keith. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I know Keith. Yes.
So he told me about this company in BC that was doing ADHD diagnosis for like $300 and in 3 weeks. Where
Wow.
here right now in the province, it's $5,000. And if you can even get yourself on a wait list,
Yes.
holy
Yes.
Hannah. So I said, you know what? Like, I'm going to go for that. I'm going to see what's up with that.
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious. They had me fill out questionnaires. The interesting thing was during the diagnosis, I'm talking to this nurse practitioner and she's like, okay, let's take all the forms and just like put them aside for a minute. And she's like, I just want you to tell me stories. And so I told her stories about how I had something called hyperlexia when I was a kid, which means like when I was in grade 1, I was reading like at a grade 6 level. You know, the teacher in grade primary actually offered to skip me a grade because I was smart and you know, so well read. It didn't happen. Like I didn't get skipped, but yeah, like there's certain things like that. I was telling the nurse practitioner stories and she goes, yeah, okay. She's like, let's look at these forms. You know, we kind of have this almost self-bias where I was like, no, it's sometimes. And she's like, no, it's every day, right? And I was like, yeah. And then she's like, well, what about this one? No, we're putting it over here, over here, over here, over here. So you realize you're like, yeah, okay, right? And actually, if I am completely honest, I got an official diagnosis of ADHD. I'm pretty certain I also have autism.
Okay.
I don't have any clinical confirmation for that, but it's really, again, like talking
the
to
two
people.
frequently do go hand in hand as well.
It's true. It's true. One of the ways that I have been so successful in my business in the last 5 years is that I'm actually now a coach, but started out as a participant in a neurodivergent business school.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's something called Solo School. It's out of BC. There's a woman named Cheryl who runs it. And it's essentially business training for neurodivergent people. So the more that you are around these people, we're like, oh, great. Like we can all unmask. We all see each other. Things are taught in ways that
make sense to,
exactly. Make sense to us.
Yeah.
So I think I've been with them for a few years. And then now this year, actually might even be coming up on a year, I am a branding and design coach in Solo School. So if you're a part of Solo School, every week you come in and I have like this kind of design lab where we just go through what you're working on. I help you tweak it in Canva and we talk about branding and all that kind of thing.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like I really love the people in it. They're also sweet and kind and brilliant individuals in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to go from not understanding where you fit to finding what sounds like the perfect fit.
Yeah. It's funny. Speaking of like teaching and things, I haven't run it in a little while, but last year I did a course through NASCAD.
Okay.
Design basics for social media marketing. And when I was in high school, I applied to NASCAD, but I didn't get in.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like I didn't get into NASCAD.
Little full circle moment.
Full circle moment. Now I'm teaching in your extended studies. So
oh my
good
gosh.
for me. But
oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's funny to like sit here and reflect with you. So thank you for that because
well, thank you for being honest and open about all of this.
You just don't realize like how far you've come. Yeah.
I have goosebumps.
It's crazy.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
I love that.
Yeah.
It really, like life really and truly is just all about understanding how to do things in a way that works for you as an individual.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, like you said, what was it? The round peg, square hole. Like, you know, you just have to figure out if you need an adaptation, do it.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it were that easy.
I was going to say, I simplified that a lot. I mean, like, not just, you know, it's not just that simple. Getting to that point, of course, is definitely a challenge for a lot of folks because, I mean, you talked about the barrier of even just getting that diagnosis. Having that diagnosis, you know, getting the diagnosis here would have cost an arm and a leg, and the timeline just would have been miserable. I've done some stories in my previous life as in the news about exactly that. So there are definitely those those barriers. But when it comes down to it, you're capable of doing all of these things that you maybe were let go for. You have to do them in your own way.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of employers who still don't get it.
Yes.
And it's funny because I have to laugh. There's employers talking right now about a labor shortage. You know, they're like, oh, we can't find people to do these things. And I'm like, well, I know where we all are. We all took our ball and went home.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want us to stay. You made us clock in and clock out. And like I had an employer who would send their secretary down to my office to make sure I was there at 8:31. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You know, like I asked this one employer, could we have like work from home Wednesdays? I want to just like put my laundry in on my lunch break.
Yeah.
And she looked me square in the face and pointed a finger at me and said, we will never work from home as long as I'm here.
Ugh.
And that was in 2019. And I was like, how's that working out for you now?
Yeah, really though. Oh, geez.
Yeah, like, so there's a lot of employers that are just so rigid, and then they wonder why. Like, where are the people? Where's the talent? What's going on? I'm like, we are serving your competitors now, or we are serving other companies all over the place.
Yep.
Doing the same work we could have done for you.
Yeah.
But because you're so rigid and you don't understand DEI, then, like
a little bit of flexibility,
Yeah.
a little bit of understanding could have gone a long way.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are some unique challenges that you are facing as an entrepreneur running your own business, but ultimately living with ADHD as well?
With neurodivergency? Yeah. Sure. I mean, essentially that's what solo school is all about, right?
Yeah.
There are challenges that I have in particular, like time blindness is a good one, right? It's, sometimes I can just get so sucked into things that you just don't realize that 4 hours have gone by. So, figuring out a schedule that works for me. I'm on a 4-day work week right now.
Okay.
I've been for almost a year, actually, I realized.
Liking it?
Loving it.
Nice.
Loving it. I just sort of compress everything into those 4 days. I do a lot of, housework and errands and things on Fridays, and then I really have the weekend to decompress.
Yes.
And I still get everything done.
Okay.
I've never been like, oh, I wish I had that one more day to do the thing. Never. So yeah, picking up that sort of schedule for me has really worked. Just trying to think what else. I'm doing it right now. I do some like fidgeting stim things. I'm like, here's a little ASMR for anyone who's interested. So I have a microphone that sits on my desk, and I have a clothespin tacked onto it.
Okay.
And so I can take the clothespin and do it here.
Okay.
Down underneath where no one can see me. So I can stim or whatever I need to do without fidget, like without
it being a potential distraction to somebody else.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, then there's other smaller things like even just clothes, like I'm looking at myself on the camera here and I'm just like, right. That's normal. But I mean, being able to wear clothes that I feel comfortable in instead of being pushed into that square peg. It has to be a suit. It has to be this, whatever.
Yeah. Business casual at the office. Yeah.
One of the first things that I did when I launched my business was I dyed my hair.
What a little act of rebellion.
Yeah. And I realized I'm like, I've been dyeing my hair for 5 years. Wow. My mom used to say, because I was like, I'm going to dye my hair. I'm going to dye my hair blue. I like it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh no, like you can't do that.
Can't
like,
do that, yeah.
You won't look professional. And as soon as I started getting my own clients, I was like, I don't care. If you don't like me because my blue hair, then
we're not going to work. Right? Exactly. Then we're not going to work well together. Yeah. What a inspirational and just ultimately empowering realization for you.
Yep. Yeah. I have actually gotten to say to some folks that we were not a good fit to work together. Like there was someone who was a potential client who ended up trying to reschedule a discovery call. So like we had never met for the third time.
Okay.
And I said, okay, Unfortunately, like,
Yeah.
we're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, if we can't make one meeting work,
That initial point of contact.
Exactly. And they stood me up twice. It wasn't even that, like,
okay. Yeah.
I'm a big communicator. 10 minutes before you need to reschedule, no problem. I'm really flexible.
Yeah.
But standing me up twice, I was like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
And I, when I was writing that email, I was thinking, wow, what a weird thing to say. I was like, what do I say to them? I'm like, oh, they're not a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what a weird thing for me to be saying, that someone is not a good fit for me, that a situation is not a good fit for me, when I've had that kind of really thrown in my face.
Yeah.
More than once,
Wow.
So it's really nice to be in control of your own destiny.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's an amazing space to be in, to be able to make those decisions, because it's ultimately doing it for yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that work that you are in fact doing.
Right.
On your website, you ask the question, do you need a logo or do you need a brand?
Right.
What does that mean? What's the difference?
It's like, okay, pop quiz time. In the simplest sense, a logo is one asset. It is one thing, it's the combination, your unique combination of color, font, shape, and style, text, icon together. And that's your logo. Brand is much, much, much broader. I've taken to talking a lot about visual branding as my area of expertise, because I recognize that branding is encompasses not only all of your kind of marketing assets and where you appear in the space, but also like your positioning and your mission and your values and all these as well. So it's like the circle just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've got some lovely partners that I work with to help companies that need positioning and brand voice and all that kind of thing. But my zone of genius, I guess they call it, is the visual branding. Okay. So the logo is one part of that, and then there's all these supporting pieces that visually make up like your visual brand, and then there's a whole other circle of brand voice, at least, that goes around it.
It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You need all the pieces to complete it.
That's right.
Love that.
Yeah.
You have a fantastic blog.
Oh, thanks.
That you update pretty frequently. You're big on social media, the communication thing, like you mentioned, you're a big communicator.
Yeah.
Love that. In one of your blogs fairly recently, you wrote about branding at different stages in a business.
Yep.
What does that actually look like? Like when you're, starting a process with a new client, is that something that you take into consideration as to where, whether they're at the startup level, they're, 5 years in, they're an established, well-known, like what does that actually mean?
Right now I'm doing lots of work with companies that are in the growth stage of business. So if we kind of pick apart these terms, the first being a startup. So if you're a startup, what's probably happening is you're going into Canva, you're designing a logo, you're just picking one of their templates, you're kind of throwing things in there, or like your sister, your business advisor or something, somebody will help you pull this kind of together. You're choosing colors and fonts based on what you like, right?
Yes.
And because you need something. Because you need a business card, because you need a website, you need a product label, you need something to get going. Yeah. So you're like, all right, I got to do something here. And at the startup stage, you don't have a lot of budget either. So, this is what's happening with your visual brand. You're like, yeah, I need a logo. I got to stick it on some stuff. We're good. When you get into the growth stage, you've been in business a few years. If you're a product-based business specifically, like you've got a couple of products, maybe 3, 4, on the go now. You have a broader understanding of your target audience. Maybe you've niched down a little bit. Maybe maybe you've expanded. You've figured out what's working. You've got sales coming in. You've got some budget to play with. You may have figured out color and font psychology. You may have not.
Okay.
Maybe this is the point where you're coming to me because you're like, okay, you know what? I had a client once say to me, I want to play at the big boys table.
Okay.
And they were in the growth stage. And I said, okay, like I see what you have there before. You hired a, less experienced freelancer to do this for you the first time. Fine. Now, we want to grow.
Yeah.
Then when you get into the expansion phase of business, you've got multiple products, you've got a bunch of clients, you've got budget, you're wanting to go into a new market. Excuse me. And you need to think about things you wouldn't even consider existing when you're a startup, like brand architecture. There's a handful of different approaches about how a product and its visual branding relates to the parent brand. For example, if you're Google, everything looks the same.
Yep.
It's Google Maps, it's Google, whatever. If you are something like a Virgin, Virgin is a big brand, but then they kind of have these sub brands underneath it where it's like Virgin Hotels, Virgin Airplane, blah, blah, blah. And that's one approach. And then there's another approach, like Coke, where it's like Coke is a parent brand, but it's also a product. And then there's products that are underneath that Coke umbrella that have nothing to do with each other, and they have completely different target audiences. They're just owned by the same people. Or like Procter & Gamble owns so much stuff. I know this is super relevant right now because everybody is looking at all the labels and where's everything made.
Yes.
So we're all looking at the back, seeing what's going on. And you might see this like little Procter & Gamble on the back of your Tide. And you're like, okay, I understand. And so even if you are a relatively small business here in Nova Scotia, and you're expanding, you have all these products, you're making more, you have to understand brand architecture and like how it all fits together, because what you're going to end up with is 15 products that they might look nice on their own, but nobody on a shelf would
in the
realize.
catalog, yes, you're not.
They would never know. They would never know. Oh, this is from that company that I really like because I already understand their values and I already know they're made in Nova Scotia, and that's great, So at the expansion phase, that's where you're starting to think about these larger concepts like brand architecture. When you're in the growth, consistency and cohesiveness is a big thing. When you're started up, you're just trying to get shit.
Yes. We've all been guilty of that. Aside from, basing your logo and your brand off of your favorite color, what are some other fairly common mistakes that, let's focus in on kind of those smaller businesses,
right,
that they're tending to make?
Yeah. A little personal pet peeve.
Yep.
Having overlapping elements in your logo.
Okay.
There's actually, I can't remember his name.
I'm just going to really quickly Google DNS and see what our logo
No. Y'all are fine. There's essentially the 7 deadly sins of logo design.
Okay.
And one of them is overlapping elements.
Okay.
And if you have it, sometimes you have readability issues. Another one is, does your logo work in full color, in straight black, and in straight white? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely come across that concern where we, tend to partner with our members for webinars or events or what have you. And if I'm, building a graphic, which I will be the first to admit, I did not go to school in New York. But that's definitely,
Sounds fancy when you say it that way.
I mean, that's what you did. It is fancy. But yeah, that's definitely a big thing. If I'm looking to, okay, well, I'm putting it on this background because this is what you want, but ultimately your logo disappears.
Yeah.
What do I do here?
Exactly.
Okay.
Usually, if you have a big picture like that you're like, could I please have the straight white version of your logo? And then it acts as almost a watermark.
Yes.
If you have product-based business where you're printing off receipts or something that's only in black and white, straight black version, you need that.
Yeah.
There's so many different possibilities.
Yeah.
And again, when you're in the startup phase, you're not really thinking about that. And in the growth phase, you might butt up against that. You might be realizing, oh, I'm trying to use this in a certain way and I can't.
Okay.
You know, in startup, you may have picked a random font off a random website, but then you realize when you're growing, oh, I can't integrate that into my Shopify site, you know, or my Squarespace or whatever. You might pick a specific Google font, but then you realize it's not available in Canva.
Sure.
You know,
Yep.
I literally had to make myself a database. Like I have a spreadsheet. I'm that nerdy. I have a spreadsheet
Really?
about here's all the fonts that I kind of know. And I'm
Okay.
like, these are in Canva, these are in Microsoft, these are in Google. So it's like,
Okay.
I had a client once who said, I do everything in Microsoft Office. She's like, I do my invoices in there. I do
Okay.
everything for there. She's like, if we're going to do the logos, she's like, I got to be able to use it in there. I said, okay.
So you pulled up your little spreadsheet, you put on your glasses, and you said, this one.
Yep.
Incredible.
I said, these two.
Here are your options.
No, I said these two together. And
Okay.
we've got these two together that are both in Microsoft Office. And it's really
Amazing.
easy for her to be on brand now
Yeah.
because she can use it anywhere.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's such a good.
See, that's that usability piece. That's number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We keep coming back.
I know,
We keep
right?
coming back. Okay. You have, we've kind of been talking a little bit about the different businesses that you have, you know, kind of worked with. They're all different sizes. You've also done some government stuff, some nonprofit stuff. Hey, hi,
Yeah.
that's us. Does your approach differ when, you know, you're starting this process with a smaller business versus, you know, a government agency or not?
A little bit. I like to meet people where they are.
Okay.
And really, that's all you can do. You know, I could see a client and I could have visions that are in outer space for them. But if they're really here and they just want to go here, then I meet them where they are and I take them as far as they want to go.
Nice.
Sometimes it's a little difficult because you're like, but over here.
Yeah. There's so much greatness
I know.
to achieve. Yeah.
But then I'm like, you know what? That's next time.
Yeah.
That's next time.
Yeah.
We'll just go from here to here now. Sometimes it's a lot for people to take in.
Sure.
With government organizations and entrepreneur partners like Invest Nova Scotia and CBDC, I've done literally hundreds of brand audits. So I go through your logo, your website, your socials, and color and font and shape and style. And I say, okay, you know, this is where you are and this is how I think you can improve. Sometimes I have to say, we need to start over. You got to rebrand. Sometimes it's tweaks. It's okay. Sometimes it's like, no,
Just scrap it all.
we got to
Start
scrap
fresh.
it all. We got to start fresh because you're going down a road here and you're going to hit a brick wall really fast.
Okay.
So it's really all about like meeting the client where they are and then seeing how far we can go together.
Amazing. You kind of touched on it a little bit. You've done some work with Invest Nova Scotia alongside Kelford Inc.
That's right.
Shout out to Joel
Yeah.
and Leah. They're also DNS members.
Yes, they're lovely.
They are lovely, lovely, lovely. Tell me a little bit about that work. What did that look like for Invest?
Last year, we took 15 companies through what we're calling the Marketing Elevation Program. I think they call it DMAD.
That does sound familiar to me. That does sound like the acronym that I was reading.
Yeah. So Digital Marketing Asset Development Program. I can't believe I remembered that.
That's incredible. The memory.
It was a brilliant partnership between me and Kelford, and we really did words and pictures. So the program was, the companies came to us, we met with them, I did a brand audit with them. I said, okay, here's how you can improve, here's what we're going to do. And then they went off and talked to Joel and Leah and had a whole session with them on their value proposition and marketing language. And then it got really personal and specific for each company because companies in the program with me got to pick from a menu of digital assets that I would develop for them.
Cool.
From that menu, Canva coaching was part of that too. So there was some companies who said, yeah, you know what? We have our social media employee as part of this. Please sit with them and go over stuff in Canva. And I did for a couple of companies. It was great.
Nice.
Sometimes it was like, hey, we're going to this trade show next month. We need a sell sheet. Can you do it for us? Great. There was a winery that was part of the program, and We did a 1-page sell sheet where Joel and Leah did the copy for it, and then I did the design of it, and it was just beautiful.
Amazing.
So they really got to choose whatever they needed to get done toward whatever they were working on.
Nice.
For a lot of them, it was going to trade shows and like, we're going to this thing now. What can we do? You know, how can we be supported? And for us, it was, okay, we know you're going to this trade show. We want you to look great, and we want you to know exactly what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful partnership between me and Kelford, because
Nice.
It's words and pictures, it's yin and yang, it's
Yeah.
left and right brain.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Joel's actually been on the podcast before.
Yeah, I know.
And just a phenomenal speaker, phenomenal writer. I was blown away. We talked about actually his little daily newsletter, and just the idea that to have, I mean, gosh, I can barely fit a sentence together some days. So for him to, you know, have something that actually is of value every single day. So that absolutely makes sense that, you know, words and pictures.
Exactly.
Sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, two very good brains. Three very good brains, all working together on that. That's lovely. I'd love to see that partnership.
Yeah, and we're actually hoping to run the program again.
Oh, great. Okay.
We're actively seeking new partners for that right now.
Okay.
So DNS, we might give you a call.
Ooh, I might pick up.
Yeah.
There's something else that you've got kind of on the go or hoping to have on the go. Nova Scotia Loyal. Talk to me about that.
Yes. So this is very, very, very exciting. Just last week, the Nova Scotia government announced a grant of up to $3,000. I believe the companies pay 70%, or they cover 70% of it. I think the companies just have to kick in 30% of that. It's for updating your packaging to include the Nova Scotia Loyal logo.
Okay.
And I mean, it's super timely. It's a really nice kind of gift from the government right now, because, you know, between you and me, like, while I'm in there, we can talk about other stuff too. So, you know,
just a little self-plug in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if you were thinking about, what do I do? How do I shore up my business with this coming storm?
Yeah.
Because it's a storm that has started.
Yes.
And really, actually, Joel and Leah and myself were talking with some other entrepreneurs recently about what is happening. Mm-hmm. And we realized that, you know, the government is doing a lot of good things. They're saying, okay, we're trying to take down interprovincial trade barriers.
Yes.
And it's great, but that door swings both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great that you're going to be able to sell your candles, your soap, your products in Ontario. But it also means that Ontario and BC, they're going to come here.
Mm-hmm. So that market is, yes.
So what do you do as a business to prepare, essentially, your position in the local market, your position like on the shelf as you know it, is no longer stable.
Yeah.
You are no longer shelf stable.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you figure out how to succeed during this storm?
Yeah.
And I thought about it from a visual branding point of view, which is what I think about often. And I thought, okay, let's make sure that your branding is solid.
Yeah.
Right? Is your logo communicating for you without you being there and having to tell the story? Mm-hmm. Is the color and fonts, are they leveraging psychology for you? Do they look good together? Do your labels look professional on a shelf? The way that customers pick products off a shelf is changing.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, sometimes it's for the good, but who knows what's going to happen, right? It used to be some customers pick on price, some pick on brand, some pick on scent, some pick on thing, right? Mm-hmm. My husband shops for shampoo. It doesn't matter. He just picks the cheapest thing, right? For me, I'm like, I have colored hair, so I want a shampoo with, you know, a feature that will support that. Mm-hmm. Great. But if you have a particular product and you have, you know, your brand is very big on it, is that going to stand up and look professional enough to other brands that are now coming in and crowding that shelf space? Mm-hmm. So really, to shore up your business, your visual branding is one of the things that you can do, because we are all trying to think, well, what can we do? What can we control?
A little bit of that panic right now.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, look inward, look at your visual branding. Is it professional enough? Does it communicate well? Do my labels look good on a shelf? These are all things that you can ask yourself. And if the answer is no, then call me, Let's talk about this program, because with the Nova Scotia Loyal, lots of people are going to have that sticker as well.
Right? That's the other side of it. So not only are we opening that door, that market to, those extra products that are going to crowd the shelf, but even having that, that little stamp of local approval, that's also not going to be enough.
Maybe not. Maybe not, right? But it's one of the things you can control is, knowing, having that confidence that, you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
My visual branding is solid and I'm good in that, check mark. Then you can start looking at other things like product market fit, problem solution fit, go back to these basics. Okay, does that all still work?
Yeah.
But at the very end of the day, for a lot of product-based businesses, it's about the shelf. So how are you performing on the shelf now, and how is that shelf going to change as things evolve?
And they're evolving.
Yes. Fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Speaking of evolving, what's next for Pixels and Pieces?
Oh gosh.
Floor is yours. We've gotten through all of my questions.
Wow. Okay.
So,
well, as I mentioned before, Leah, Joel, and I are actively looking for new partners for the Marketing Elevation program.
Okay.
So that's on the go. I've got some very nice retainer clients that I'm cozy with right now. It's great.
Nice.
Taking
new clients on
I
top
am
of that?
taking new clients, a few, not very many, but a few. Probably starting in like April or May. Probably take a couple of new clients. One of the things that I've come to realize, and this I think will kind of tie a nice bow on everything we've talked about, is that throughout my whole entrepreneur journey, throughout my whole career journey, I have figured out what's enough. There's lots of pressure to scale, grow your own agency. No thanks. I went on a dream trip to Europe for Christmas last year, and I just marveled in the fact that I could afford it, that we did it, we had the time. It was great. I figured out what's enough. So I am taking a few new clients, and again, we're hoping to get the Marketing Elevation program on the go. And that's it. I'm going to go hang out with my dog, Sandy, and my husband, and live my life.
Amy, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I've really cultivated my ideal lifestyle as an entrepreneur.
Not many folks, I think, can say that.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And incredible work that you've done to get here in just 5 years. That's the other thing. This has been 20 plus years, kind of in the industry itself, but 5 on your own, crafting that.
Yeah, it's gone by in a flash.
I bet it has.
Yeah.
Well, so has this podcast.
I know.
This
That's
episode
crazy.
come to an end. But I just want to say, I would love to have given you the last word, and I will, but but just to say, you've shared some really incredible advice and guidance and tips for folks, mostly being me and my desire to choose colors that I like. I will move away from that. But what I really want to kind of end this on is just that I am thankful to you for being comfortable to share your personal challenges as well, and what you're doing to help overcome them. I know, having friends in my life that are neurodivergent, I myself potentially probably same sort of thing, noticing that I'm checking a lot of those boxes these days. But that's not an easy thing to do. Even just coming and sitting here with me, a stranger, and sharing that is not an easy thing to do. So I just want to say thank you for being comfortable. And I think that, the way that I try to live my life is that if I can help one person, then I've done something right.
I was pretty much just going to open my mouth to say that, to say, you know what, like if anyone is a fan of Simon Sinek and Find Your Why, my why is to empower others so that we see opportunity. So if this podcast, if there's just one person listening that is thinking about entrepreneurship, is thinking about starting their own business, is thinking, oh, maybe I'm neurodivergent, I don't know what the path for me is, DM me.
Amazing. Amazing. There. That's the last word that we'll leave it on. Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Recorded by This Is Marketing, unblanding branding since 2015.